Hello, this is a demo of a script I've written in R to extract Google Analytics data from two different profiles and then compare them. It's pretty rough and ready. It's not really designed for casual use, just as a tool to help me do my job a bit more quickly and more accurately. So these profiles can be from two different properties or the same property, two different views of the data with different filters, etc. It's quite flexible. The main use case I've been using it for recently is for when I'm running a universal analytics profile or property, in parallel with the classic Google Analytics one before migrating over, just to make sure that everything is tracking as I'd expect. And as is often the way, it often isn't, because the client's missing tags off certain pages or other technical implementation issues generally, or sometimes just oversight in terms of profiles, profile configuration, filters, URL parameters, etc. So it's a good sanity check, and let me show you how it works. So this report can be used with a number. The reports can be figured a number of ways. So I've got a list of reports I use at the moment. So basically, I'm pulling a set of metrics and a set of dimensions from the data using the API, GA API, and the comparison just works with one dimension and one metric at a time, which is fine for my purposes. So I use a small selection from this list, pages and host names, etc. So let me show you that. So this is all in RStudio with a few R scripts that are running together. So I'm running it. Now I've already run this with OAuth, done the OAuth kind of authorization, the login to get access to the GA account, and the results are all cached now, so it runs very quickly. And pops up a text file here with the results. So like I said, it's all a bit rough and ready. It's not particularly user friendly, but it's functional at the moment. So this is a list of all the reports that get run. It's running on two different profiles. So this is the badminton site I created, so it's my own personal site, but it works fine with clients. I've been using it for a client site as well. I just prefer to demo my own site on the video. So it's my the main profile for my badminton site, which uses classic analytics, and there's also the universal test, which is running in parallel and uses it's the universal analytics tracking. So you can see that it runs a host names report, device report, browsers, pages, sources and events report all on the main profile, and then the same again on the test profile, and it's running the landing page one separately for technical reasons, which I won't go into now. But then you get so that's just a sanity check of the dates it's comparing, the kind of report and what filters getting used, so you have a bit of a record. But it can show a sample of the actual data results as well. I just tend to have that switched off. Now here we have the host names report. So this is just showing the differences between rows that the two have in common, and there's a filter in place, so it only shows ones where there's a difference above a certain threshold, which is 5%, though the total line always gets shown. So basically, there's only one session on the mobile subdomain on the main site, and then on the universal site. So this is the classic. The X column is the classic version, the Y column is the universal analytics, and we've got one session and 5 sessions, which is a difference of 4. So that means that difference is 400% the size of the original X, and that's how it does the comparison. So I filtered a lot of these out. Obviously, because the number of sessions is so small, the percentage difference isn't particularly meaningful, and these are trivial differences, so we can ignore them. And then it's got rows which only appear in one set of data or the other. So we've got some different capitalizations of the host name which people have typed in, and we've got the web cache as well. So these are, for whatever reason, only been tracked in one version of the site. It might be that the Universal Analytics, because I'm running it through Google Tag Manager, it may be that the hostname filter I'm using on Google Tag Manager, the way I've got it configured, it may be it's filtering that out in some ways, in which case it might be worth investigating, but it's only a small number of sessions. The main takeaway from this report basically in this case is that none of the main domain name does not appear, which is because the difference is less than 5%. I can set the threshold to 0 so I can see all the differences, but for brevity I'm just giving you the kind of highlights. And then this is, unfortunately my labelling isn't too good at the moment. I haven't got it to dynamically show which report it's pulling from, but it's going from the browsers, or not. Devices. So it's showing that the mobile and the desktop and the and tablet versions of the two profiles are basically very similar. Overall, it's 2.5% difference, 2.7% difference, a few hundred sessions. There's no rows that only appear in one or the other, so unsurprisingly. So it's nothing really amazing going on there. Browsers, you can see there's a few which have a difference, and again the difference is very small in absolute terms, so again nothing to get too excited about. I wouldn't really consider any of that to be particularly significant. And then you've got a few browsers that popping up, mainly in the classic analytics. The first three are showing in the classic analytics only, and the last two are showing up in the universal analytics only. So again, it's only a few numbers of sessions, one in each case, so again it's attributable to random error rather than random variation between the JavaScript tracking, rather than any kind of systematic problem, any kind of tracking implementation problem. Now the more interesting report here is the page report, because if common mistake will be if one of the pages is not tagged in one version or other, and this is a kind of view of the information that will reveal it. Generally in this view here, which shows the pages that are only appear in one profile or one view or the other. But these are the rows that do appear in both, but with just significant tracking differences. And again, the absolute difference is very, very small, 18 page views in this case. So again, and that's the biggest difference, so again this can be ignored really. But you can see how if there was some more obscure tracking problem, this would flag it up. But if it was just a simple case of a page wasn't tagged, then it would appear here. And here we've got something with 30 page views, which may be significant. So I might want to check how the Chinese version of the site, using Google Translate, the Chinese version is working. It's probably not that significant. Now this is more, you'll notice there's a lot of these tracking. Now, these are all virtual URLs, so they're all triggered by clicks on links. So I would want to, because there's so many of these appearing, it might be that I just haven't implemented this in the Y version, which is the Universal Analytics version, and that would be something to double check. So it is useful for things like that. And I should have an events view as well, and that's down here, so that's again a similar kind of issue. So it's not just the standard page views, but also help you understand or spot any anomalies with your customized tracking as well. So this is traffic sources, which I think is less likely to have a major difference unless your cross-domain tracking isn't set up properly on one property, one tracking configuration, in which case you'll get a lot of self-referrals here. That's the main thing I'd actually be looking for here, would be self-referrals. As you can see, again, the difference column is very, very small. Actually, I haven't looked at this site for a long time. I haven't looked at the data, I haven't looked at how the Universal Analytics is comparing, so it could have been very, very different. But it looks like generally, if things are working okay, probably mainly because it's all done through Google Tag Manager now, I think, or certainly the Universal Analytics version is. So there we have the traffic sources, not significant. Again, the sources that only appear in one view or the other, again, not very significant. We go down to events. Here you see there's a whole load which are appearing in X, but not in Y, and in fact there's none that appear in both, so that tells you that actually I've only implemented event tracking in the classic analytics, not in Universal Analytics. So, and that tells you that very quickly. Normally in this report I'd just be scanning down and fairly quickly looking at the results. I'm fairly used to looking at it now, and that's something that would jump out at me. So it is actually a lot quicker. Obviously, checking whether there's any event tracking is fairly quick in Google Analytics, but this is a nice automated way to do it, and you can run it on 10 or so different profiles, 10 or so different clients quickly, and get a quick overview of where there might be problems. So again, these are this is the landing pages, and you wouldn't expect this to be very different to the page views, apart from, again, possibly if there's a cross-domain tracking issue, you might see a big difference here. As you can see here, there's some which are not set, which are mainly appearing classic and not the universal. That's kind of interesting. It's not a significant number, but still might be worth looking into where that's coming from. And again, we've got all those virtual pages appearing. I mean, it's surprising they're a landing page, but that could be due to the session ending while someone's still kind of midway through visiting the site, that kind of thing. But again, the numbers are very small. So, the takeaway is, main issue is the event tracking virtual pages, so tracking clicks on outbound links in this case. And then there's a bit of contextual information, so the time the report was executed, what version of the software I was using. It's the GitHub hash, so that I can, when I'm looking at an old report, I can know, and if I want to run it again, exactly the same report, comparing the same running the same comparison algorithm, I know that I'm using the same version of the program, and what version of the platform I'm using, stuff like that, just to be thorough really for the records. So this wasn't a few extra points to mention. I mean, obviously the comparison could be of other things. The main benefit here, the main use case here, was universal analytics, like testing. But I'm also planning to use this for testing some filters, the impact of some filters. I was using this to make sure some URL parameter exclusions were working. So, a good use is comparing the unfiltered version of the tracking, the unfiltered view, to the normal view you use, and just make sure that you understand the impact of some of the filters you're using, etc. Or to just make sure there's nothing weird that you've missed because you normally look at the main view. Another use case is I often set up a tester filter on a site before I put it onto the main site, and this gives you an easy way of comparing that filter test version to another baseline and checking that the impact is what you'd expect. Another way this is coming useful, going back to the universal analytics comparison, this Badminton site is not an e-commerce site, but if you are looking at an e-commerce site, you can also compare the transactions and the products. And I found with the client already that we'd realised that the universal analytics version wasn't showing any products which had single quotes in the product title, and that was because they hadn't escaped the JavaScript in the data layer. And that's a kind of subtle thing that takes a little while to notice if you're looking at something manually. You realise that all the missing products have single quotes, but on this kind of report, you get a list of the top products with a big difference, and then you suddenly notice when you're looking down the list that yes, they all have single quotes in it, or most of them have single quotes. In this case, there was another bug as well, which is a bit more subtle, but it gives you a quick headline, and it does help reveal things quickly and easily that you might miss otherwise. So it's quite a useful tool. I'm going to be working on it more to make it a bit more user-friendly and also a bit more flexible, and also do more than just comparison, but also do some kind of standard auditing tasks, checking for self-referrals, checking for low bounce rates on certain pages, which could indicate tagging problems, that kind of thing. So it's still a work in progress, but if it interests you, then please contact me and we can discuss further. Thanks for listening.